Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the history of fresh produce and, of course, our World Cup series. Feels like we've been doing this forever already, Patrick, but it's been fun, and we hope everyone's been enjoying it as well. Now, to start off today's episode, Patrick, there's a figure that almost everyone who drinks coffee has encountered, even if they
Okay.
don't know his name or have never consciously thought about him. So he stands on millions of coffee bags. He has been on television in the US since 1959. He has a mule named Conchita. He wears a straw hat. He has a magnificent mustache. And he has really always been and was never anything other than entirely fictional.
Juan Valdez.
That's right,
I
Juan
thought that guy
Valdez.
was real.
No, he
It's
was
a
created
fictional
in
character.
he was created of all places in New York by an advertising agency to promote a product from a country the first actor portraying him had never visited. So the first Juan Valdez was a
Oh, Juan.
Cuban-American opera singer from Havana who'd come to Manhattan to pursue a stage career. So he played Valdez for 10 years and also released an album of songs in character, Songs
Interesting.
of Juan Valdez in 1961.
What?
Yeah.
The songs of Juan Valdez, everyone.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, really is the gloss that every account of this adds. And I think that's right because and yet though, Patrick, this fictional Cuban American operatic Colombian coffee farmer is one of the most successful advertising characters in the history of capitalism. And the
okay.
story of how he came to exist and what he was created to protect and what the institution that built him actually is, that's the story of Colombian coffee, the myth of Juan Valdez.
Okay. Well, we need to start with coffee itself in Colombia, how it gets there, and why it becomes so central to the country's identity that they commission a New York ad agency to protect it.
Right. So
Hmm.
coffee is not native to Colombia. So, like almost every plant we've discussed in this series and then in our show as a whole, it starts somewhere else. So, Coffea arabica originates in the Ethiopian highlands. So the province of Kaffa is the most cited candidate for this. And it makes its way through the Arabian Peninsula, where it is cultivated seriously from the 15th century and gives us the word coffee via the Arabic kawa. So
Hmm.
from Yemen, it spreads to the Ottoman Empire, to Venice, to the coffee houses of 17th century London and Paris.
Wow. I mean, yeah, okay. Everyone get ready for the ride. And into South America, John,
Hmm.
coffee arrives in the 18th century.
Yeah.
To Colombia, perhaps as early as 1730, carried by Jesuit missionaries, according to one of the more colorful origin stories. So by the mid 19th century, it is being exported from Colombian ports. By the late 19th century, it is moving from smallholder cultivation to the massive hacienda system, large farms run by landowners using peasant labor, producing in volume, but not with any particular quality consistency.
Yeah.
Huh,
And the problem
okay.
with the hacienda model, from the farmer's perspective, not the landowners, of course, is that it creates dependency, right? So the farmers who actually work the coffee are paid perhaps half of the international market price by the landowners and exporters who control this trade. And so the profits of a commodity whose international demand is growing don't reach the people growing it.
And then on July 25th, 1927, the Second National Coffee Congress in Medellin, a group of coffee producers does something structurally unusual. They form a federation,
Mhm.
not a company, not a co op, not in the Europe sense, right?
Yeah.
A non governmental, non-profit organization, the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros de Colombia, the FNC, that will represent the collective interests of Colombian coffee growers, defend the price they receive, and promote their product internationally. Funded by parafiscal tax on coffee exports, right? A levy that goes not to the government, but to the federation itself. The
Mhm.
FNC has its own budget, its own institutions, and its own capacity for action.
Yeah. And
Pretty
over the
cool.
following decades, it builds out something that makes it, by the 1940s and 50s, one of the most unusual and arguably most effective agricultural organizations in the world. So in 1938, it founds Cafe, the National Coffee Research Center,
Okay.
will eventually become the institution responsible for one of the most important achievements in Colombian agriculture. And that's the development of disease resistant coffee varieties that saved the Colombian crop from the rust epidemic of the 1970s and 80s.
Wow.
It builds roads to connect remote highland growing areas to markets. It runs a coffee bank. It operates a merchant marine fleet. It guarantees to purchase coffee from any producer at the reference market price, meaning that even a farmer in the most remote valleys of Antioquia can sell his crop at a fair rate.
Wow. And this is genuinely remarkable. There are roughly 540,000 coffee growing families in Colombia.
Yeah.
You heard that right. 540,000. Okay. A significant majority of them are smallholders. Farms of 2 to 5 hectares, a family worked often on mountain slopes that no tractor can reach.
Yeah.
These are not wealthy agribusiness operations, John. These are families for whom coffee is often the primary, I would say, or the only income or for consumption, right?
Yeah.
And the FNC represents them collectively with a budget and a political voice and a marketing operation that in the 1950s determines that the best way to protect their product internationally is to give it a face.
Yeah. So the problem that MNC is trying to solve in 1958 is a specific commercial one, and understanding it really requires understanding the American coffee market of the 1950s.
You got to bring that into play because post-war America drinks an enormous amount of coffee. It is the dominant hot beverage, but the coffee that Americans are drinking from Maxwell House, from Folgers, from Hillsborough is a blend, a mixture of beans from multiple origins, optimized for consistent flavor at a low cost.
Mhm.
And these blends, the word coffee appears on it, the tin, right? If you remember, but the origin of the bean does not. A blend might contain Brazilian Robusta, Central American Arabica, some Colombian. The portion varies by price and availability.
Yeah, and of course, the FNC has a problem with this because Colombian coffee, specifically Colombian Arabica, grown at altitude, hand picked rather than mechanically harvested, with a flavor profile that professionals consistently rank above the Brazilian and the Central American competitors, is being sold into these anonymous blends at commodity prices. So the farmer who picked those beans by hand gets no premium for the quality, right? The consumer gets no information about what distinguishes Colombian coffee from generic coffee. Colombia is now essentially subsidizing America's coffee habit with its best beans at a mediocre price.
Wow. I mean, that doesn't sound great, does it?
Now, if you're a Colombian coffee grower,
The FNC wants to break out the commodity trap, right? It wants Colombian coffee to be recognized by consumers as a distinct premium product worth paying more for. And in 1958, it commissions an ad agency to help do so.
of course it does. That's always what you do when you're in these positions, it seems. And so it's not just any ad agency either, Patrick. This is Doyle Dane Bernbach, so DDB, which was at that moment in time in the middle of reinventing American advertising. So DDB had run again, I don't know how many people have seen these advertisements. Some of these ring a bell, but you have their Volkswagen Think Small campaign, which turned this ugly German car into a counterculture icon, of course, in the 60s. They ran the Avis We Try Harder campaign, which made being number 2 feel like a virtue. So they were not conventional advertiser. They believed in ideas.
Yeah. That's a We Try Harder campaign. Yeah, I guess you're right. That's great. Which be make me number 2.
Yeah.
I think their idea for Colombian coffee is conceptually simple but strategically brilliant, right? We all know Juan Valdez, right? Rather than advertising a statistic or a fact about Colombian coffee, rather than saying Colombian Arabica scores higher on the scale or Colombian coffee has this certification, they personify the farmer, right?
Yeah.
And they create a human being who stands between the consumer and the coffee bag. And that human being communicates quality, pride, hard work, and authenticity when saying any of those words. He just shows up in his mountains with his mule, and you just understand.
Yeah. And it's William Birnbach and art director Helmut Krohn who designed the character. So Juan Valdez, this a composite fictional Colombian smallholder, traditional Andean dress. So the Ruano poncho, the straw hat, the mule Conchita always behind him, loaded with the coffee sacks and a setting, right? The Andes Mountains always in the background, communicating altitude, difficulty, effort. And so the character is doing what millions of real Colombian farmers do, right? Where this is not completely fictional. They're picking coffee by hand, they're
Yeah.
putting mountain terrain, they're loading it onto a mule because, again, no vehicle can navigate these crazy slopes in the mountains. So the imagery is real. The man, of course, is not.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the man who becomes this fictional farmer. So Jose Duval walks into the DDB office for his audition. He is Cuban-American. He has been in New York since the 1930s. He has had leads in Kismet, South Pacific, and multiple productions of The King and I. He is a stage performer, not a coffee farmer. He has no connections to Colombia at all. But guess what? He gets the part.
He does. He does. And the results are extraordinary. So within 5 months of the campaign launching in 1959, the proportion of American consumers identifying Colombian coffee as excellent had increased by 300%. So 60% of those surveyed said they would pay more for Colombian coffee. And in 1964, General Foods converts its Ubon brand to 100% Colombian to leverage the campaign's reputation. And so the commodity trap begins to break.
But the FNC strategy is not just advertising. The Juan Valdez campaign is the public face of something more structural. The Federation introduces a certification system. The triangular logo showing Valdez, his mule, and the Andes Mountains silhouette certifies that the product contains 100% Colombian coffee. Roasters who want to use the logo must meet quality standards and commit to the certification. It is effectively a geographical indication system operating through an advertising character rather than through law. Decades before the concept of geographical indication becomes standard, right? In international trade agreements.
Yeah. And the Federation's long term investment in quality control pays off in ways that
Oh,
become
yeah.
visible in moments of crisis. So in the 1970s, a coffee leaf rust fungus, Himalaya vastatrix, begins devastating Colombian coffee crops. So the same fungus that had already destroyed much of Central America's production arrives in Colombia. And Santa Cafe, the Federation's research institution, responds by developing a rust-resistant hybrid variety called Colombia and later Castillo that allows smallholder farmers to maintain production through this epidemic. So the research institution that the Federation had built in 1938 saves the entire industry 40 years later.
Wow. And then the crisis that comes not from disease, but from something closer to the market manipulation. In 1989, everyone, the International Coffee Agreement, a global commodity pact that had managed coffee prices since 1962, collapses. The agreement had involved coffee producing nations collectively restricting exports to maintain the price. When it fails, global coffee prices fall by half within 18 months, John. Colombian farmers who had been receiving a sustainable price for their beans find themselves in an acute financial difficulty. I mean, overnight in the price. When it fails, global coffee prices fall by half within 18 months, John. Find themselves in an acute financial difficulty. I mean, overnight.
Yeah, it's Patrick. The FNC does deploy its coffee support funds. So the Fondo Nacional collapse. So it effectively subsidizes its farmers through the crisis from reserves where coffee export revenues flow to private companies or directly to the state have no equivalent buffer. From a parafiscal tax gives it a resilience that no other coffee producer.
And all of it. Juan Valdez. Our imposter, Carlos Sanchez, a real Colombian farmer from Frederica, Antioquia, takes over the role from Duval in 1969 and plays Valdez for 36 years, becoming perhaps the most recognizable face in Colombian advertising history. He surfs in Juan Valdez commercials. He skis. He appears in the film Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey. He travels from Japan to Canada, Norway to Spain as the ambassador of Colombian coffee to the world.
Yeah, it's he's an incredible character. And Patrick, there's actually something worth pausing on here because the Juan Valdez character is on its face again a fiction, right? A Cuban-American opera singer initially playing a Colombian farmer for an American advertising agency. But the thing he represents is real. So again, the 540,000 smallholder families growing coffee on Andean mountain slopes, the people who handpick the beans at altitudes of 1,200 to 1,800 meters because coffee grown at altitude develops more slowly, accumulates more sugars, produces more complex flavor. The people who, without the FNC's guaranteed purchase price, would be at the mercy of whatever a private buyer offered them on a given morning.
Oh, wow. The fictional character is the public signal of a real institution, and the real institution is the reason Colombian coffee commands a premium. Juan Valdez is the face. The FNC is the skeleton.
Yeah. And Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is from Colombia, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1982, whose 100 Years of Solitude is set in the fictional town of Macondo, not far from the coffee regions, wrote with particular magic realist understanding that reality in Colombia has always been stranger than any fiction invented to describe it. So that the most important farmer in the country's commercial history never existed. That he was played for a decade by a man who starred in musical South Pacific, and that his mule is named Conchita.
Look, John, magical realism is not a style Garcia Marquez invented. It is the accurate observation of an ordinary Colombian life.
Precisely. So Colombia is once again at the World Cup. And actually, Patrick, for years, the national team was called Los Cafeteros, the coffee growers. So how's that for a historically appropriate nickname for a football team?
That's a good one. I'm going to give you that one, John.
All they need now is a player called Juan Valdez.
Yeah.
I want to see the big mustache and
Yeah, they're going to get one day.
On the sidelines.
Someone's going to name their kid Juan Valdez, and he's going to be a soccer player. So, well, everyone, that is Colombia. And if you want to catch the next episode in this amazing series right here, right now, log on to the web browser, app.theproduceindustrypodcast.com. Go to the right-hand side of the website, click support the show, become a Ubarra King or friend of the show, and get all access right here, right now.
That's right. So everyone, enjoy a nice, strong cup of authentic Colombian coffee as you're watching the Los Cafeteros play. And until next time, it's goodbye for me, John Papp.
And goodbye for me, Patrick Kelly.